I went to Taft, I went to Hufford, I went to Dirksen, and then eventually to Central. So I live out in the country now. I don't live in the footprint of this project, but when I started getting involved with this, I was reporting. I was freelance reporting for the Chicago Tribune at the time, and I started realizing what was happening in Kansas and started talking to people down there. So that kind of, like Alice down the rabbit hole I went. So I'm involved with this, and I want to make sure we understand we are all volunteers. I'm not getting paid, they're not getting paid, the people at the tables are not getting paid, the person doing our website is not getting paid. So we are all here because we believe in this project, in what we're doing to oppose North Point. My role in all of this, these women are the true core of the No2Northpoint movement. They started as the researchers. They're the ones that did the majority of the legwork. I kind of came in after the fact because I went down to Kansas 2 years ago and reported on what I saw there. One of the issues that North Point, with this project, North Point is saying that we got to go down to Kansas and look at it. It's a city on the hill. It's got a lot of, look how wonderful it is. And so I went down there and I want to lay it deeper. I talked to the state representative who oversees both Gardner, which is the neighboring town, and Edgerton, Kansas, where the intermodal is. I went and I talked to the mayor of Gardner, the neighboring town. I talked to board members, I talked to labor, I talked to residents, I talked to farmers. I talked to a lot of different people, and I came back and sat on my bed and cried. What's happening to this community down there was so sad to me. So that's how I came to present a 45-minute speech. I promise I won't do that to you tonight, to the Elwood Planning and Zoning Commission. They're going to give you the history. But since this all arose again very, very quickly at the end of January, I went down about 3 weeks ago in February, and I went down again because I wanted to make sure that in presenting information, I was doing it accurately as possible. And somebody I respect called me out on it and said, what are your facts today? So I went back. And what I learned was the development in and of itself was sprawling. Even, I don't know if 4 times is an accurate number, but that's how I felt. It was huge. It had grown exponentially since my last trip there. Some things that I noticed that had not changed. There were still no new houses in Edgerton, Kansas. So one of the things that we're hearing is how there are all these residents being built across from the intermodal. Well, let's take a real good look at that. I pulled the MLS from Edgerton, Kansas from 2017 to present, and I found one new house. It was 700 something Knoll Road, Heather Knoll Road. And one house since 2017 in the entire city of Gardner. The entire city of Edgerton, Kansas, which is where the intermodal is. And that one house was developed by Christian builders, new Christian builders. And who owns that? Edgerton City Council President. That's the only new house since 2017 that's been developed. So now let's talk about commercial development. In the commercial development, the city of Edgerton, Kansas has had 0 commercial development since I was there 2 years ago. 2 years ago, they were just putting in a Dollar General. So the Dollar General is still there, and I gotta tell you, it's a heck of a Dollar General. I took video, I was so impressed. It was a whopping Dollar General. What is a Dollar General? A gas station, a single gas station with all these warehouses and buildings that are going in. And they jump the highway to the other side of 35, which is kind of like the equivalent of going over 55 to Shanahan and Bluff Road and all of that. They jump the highway, and there are no gas stations anymore. No gas stations have been built in the 2 years I've been there, and before that, a number of years. There's no commercial, so they had a sum total of a Dollar General, a single gas station in town, a liquor store, tobacco shop type place, and that's it. There's nothing in Edgerton, Kansas. The development doesn't exist in Edgerton, Kansas. It is industrial, what North Point controls, and there's nothing else. Now, I've heard that, there are houses being built across the street from the Alamota. Let's talk about that. First of all, it's not Edgerton. So none of the money that is being pumped through North Point actually hits the city of Edgerton. They just got their streets paved, re-blacktop. They had to take out bonds for that. They did not get curbs. They did not get sidewalks. That's first of all. Secondly, these new duplexes that are being built across from the intermodal, they are very, very, very tiny. There are about 8 to 10 of them, as I understand it, they're being built. They have 2 small bedrooms in the basement and 1 bedroom on the first floor. They are not on the MLS because they are rentals. So these are cheap rental houses that are being put in across from the intermodal, and they have absolutely nothing to do with Edgerton, Kansas. So if you want to say that it's thriving, my opinion is it's not a terrible place, but thriving is not anywhere near the word that I would use to describe Edgerton. Gardner, Kansas, which is further up the road, they're doing well, but they were doing well before. Now they are being saddled with issues on the interchanges, and this is what we're going to talk about. What's happening here is they want to put this development, and they say that we're going to take care of the roads within the development. What happens the next inch? What happens after that? Who is going to pay for the long-term maintenance of the roads leading up to that? How is that going to impact the rest of the area and the rest of the neighboring communities? So when you go down to Gardner, Kansas, you take a look at the interchange, the next exit down from Gardner. Now all of a sudden Gardner has to pay for more police presence. Edgerton, Kansas does not have a police force. They have 2 county cops. Monday through Friday, that's it. So, they're talking about apples to apples. Please be aware when you hear words like thriving, make sure that you understand what you're talking about. Development. Somebody sent me pictures, these are the new houses. I looked up those new houses. They were built in 2004. It's not happening. So with that, I'm going to give it over, who am I giving it over to? Katie Hunt.
Hi everybody, my name is Katie Hunt and I live in Jackson Township and I'm currently the Jackson Township Clerk. Myself, along with Delilah Legret, who's our Jackson Township Assessor, and Stephanie Irvine. The 3 of us got together about 2.5 years ago when this project first came out, and we've been rolling with it ever since. So just to give you a little background on me, I have taught in the Joliet community for 13 years, so I do think I have a pretty good pulse on what the community needs. I'm wearing my Be Kind shirt because it was Motivation Monday at school, so just want you can be mean, I'll be all right. This is just for my kids. So I think I have a pretty good pulse on the Joliet community and, like I said, what's needed. And I just don't believe that this project is what's needed for Joliet. So I'm going to go over some timelines, how we got to this point, and a couple of things about the maps that we have out here. Okay, so first of all, North Point originally went to the Village of Elwood. They wanted to get the project with the Village of Elwood. Once we got wind of the project, we started FOIA-ing documents, looking at what the proposal was, and we put a lot of pressure on the Elwood Village, the Village of Elwood board. And they ultimately said, you know what, this is not the project for our area, thanks but no thanks. North Point then approached the county. Jim Moostis, who was the speaker at the time of the county board, said, this application doesn't really look that great. We're not interested. We suggest that you get your ducks in a row and, maybe come back, but don't. Then In October of last year, North Point approached the city of Joliet to rezone 103 acres up on Breen Road, which is in Jackson Township. And we all contended that 103 acres is just a means to an end. They're going to get that so they can get contiguity to come down south of Manhattan Road and get their original footprint. And North Point said, no, that's not what we're doing. That's not what we're doing. The boundary agreement with Elwood and Joliet expired on December 31st of 2019. And it was a couple of days later that North Point approached the city of Joliet to bring this project in. So they have been told no by the village of Elwood, by Will County, kind of. And so they're just going to whomever they can get to get this project passed through. So that's where we are today. We urge everyone to come out to the council meeting on March 17th, next Tuesday at 6:30. We really, really need people there to show the city council members that the residents of Joliet are against this project. All right, so what you have in front of you is a map of the Joliet project. So you have in red is the 103 acres of Breen Road that was already within the city of Joliet. They petitioned to change the zoning to, I have a pointer.
Oh, there you go.
They wanted to change the zoning to industrial. So that went through. And so now the project, I've got a pointer, guys. The project comes all the way south. You're 9 miles to Interstate 80. So you're 9 miles to the closest interstate, which isn't really how intermodals or warehousing facilities are meant to operate. They're meant to operate a little bit closer to the interstates, like Centerpoint exists right now in Elwood and Joliet. And then we fully believe that if this project goes through, when the boundary agreement between Joliet and Manhattan expires in 2026, that North Point would continue to move to the east. Much like Aaron said, they come in with a project and then it just continues to grow and grow and grow. They don't stop. All right, so this is what we believe will be the full footprint of the project when all is said and done. This includes that area of Manhattan. The 103 acres is up here, and then you come down. There's two things to note here. First of all, this little corner right here, that little piece of property, that is the FAA property. Currently, North Point and the city of Joliet do not have the contiguity required to come down to this part of the project, okay? This is corner-to-corner annexation, it's not legal. So that's one piece of the project that we have a problem with. All of this shouldn't even exist in the project because they don't have the FAA. They say that the FAA has, they said they won't oppose, but that's not how it works. The FAA has to ask for annexation. The next problem we have is this bridge here, which is currently in litigation, which the other girls will explain a little bit more later. But without this bridge, then you can't access the rail. Even if you do get the bridge, say you get the bridge, this area here, Mississippi Road, this is under the village of Elwood's jurisdiction. The city of Joliet would have to come in and condemn that land in order to have access to it. We've talked to attorneys and they have said another municipality cannot come in and condemn land of a municipality. So Joliet, even if they do get this bridge, how are they going to get from here to here? They can't. It absolutely cannot happen. All right, and this is something that we've mentioned a couple of times, is the scope and sequence of the project and what it would look like if it was in Joliet. So we have, I know it's not the Slammer Stadium any longer, I forget the name of it, my apologies. But over here is the Slammer Stadium. It would extend all the way over, a little bit past Hobart Road, and then you're going a little bit south of I-80, all the way up to, that road was called Rose Avenue. So it's somewhere right around here actually. So all of that in red, that is how large this project is. I think that's okay, right? All right, so I'm going to turn it over to Delilah, and she will explain a little bit more about the litigation.
Thank you, Katie. Okay, I'm going to focus first on the proposed bridge. I think first the most important thing to understand is this is not the proposed Hobart Road Bridge. I'm sure you're all familiar with that. It's been in the news for quite a few years now. The proposed Hobart road bridge is actually way north up here somewhere. It goes up here, and that connects within Center Point to I-80 and then to Humboldt Road. And its intention is to take the trucks that are leaving Center Point now, going out on Laraway Road, going out on 53, all of those things, and containing them to this bridge to get them to I-80, okay? That bridge is not part of this project, and it's not what I'm going to talk about in the future. I think there seems to be a little confusion on that sometimes, so I just wanted to clear that up right from the get-go. The bridge here is at Walter Strawn Drive and Route 53. And there are two major issues that I'll go with. One being the legalities of the bridge, and the second being the logistics of this bridge. The legalities of this bridge is that it is already incorporated into the Village of Elwood. The Village of Elwood has jurisdiction over this road and over where the proposed bridge would go. The Village of Elwood has said no. Not only have they said no to this bridge, Northpoint Development is currently suing Elwood, saying, no, you have to let us build this bridge. And Elwood says, absolutely not, we do not need to do that. So there is a lawsuit currently open on this bridge. This is something that should absolutely be settled and figured out before the city of Joliet even takes a look at this plan, okay? If the bridge is denied in court, what does the city of Joliet do then? Well, in the pre-annexation agreement, it shows that the city is responsible for finding another place to put all of these trucks, right?
Say that again.
The city is taking the risk and being responsible for all of the trucks. And as Katie pointed out, but I think it's really important to point out twice, the bridge here, not only has the Village of Elwood said no to, the property owner on either side of the proposed bridge has said absolutely not, you are not taking any of my land for this bridge. And then the road that is 1.5 miles long to get to the project that the city council is voting on is in the Village of Elwood. So their proposal as it stands, if you take out the Village of Elwood's little corner here, exists on an island. I mean, I guess which makes sense for them because it's a closed loop and their trucks are never going to leave ever. So it works that way. But those are the legalities of the bridge. Let's talk a little bit about the logistics. Why is the bridge so important? Why are we spending so much time on this bridge, right? In the logistics industry, every mile counts, okay? Centerpoint Intermodal has 2 rail yards. The BNSF rail sits right here. That's kind of what you see on this side of your screen. The UP rail sits to the north in Centerpoint Joliet. Trucks come in to the intermodal. They go to those railways. They pick a container. They then take that container to a warehouse, sort products, build products, really depends on the business, right? But it goes to a building, something else is done with it, it goes back onto a truck, and then the truck takes it either to another sorting facility or will take it to its final destination, okay? Every single mile counts. That's why these buildings right here are right there. They can pick up back and forth, back and forth, back and forth real fast, right? Eventually though, yes, there's drayage, there's the back and forth, but these trucks do what? They leave the park, right, to their final destination or to their other packing facility, right? Trucks don't stay inside this loop forever. They have to deliver our goods to us. The bridge here does what? It gets them closer to this rail yard. Katie talked about it being about 9 miles away from an interstate. It's farther than that without the bridge to get to the rail. This is not a through street, this is the cemetery. North of that, you would have to go all the way to Laraway Road, head west into the intermodal, and then head all the way south back into Elwood, okay? Northpoint's project is not profitable for them without this bridge. They are unable to compete with nearby businesses unless they have immediate access back and forth to that rail. That's how they make money. Short beam drayage makes money, makes their buildings competitive, okay? We hear a lot that the trucks are coming anyway. The trucks are coming anyway, the bridge will help solve the problem, okay? Well, we've discussed why the bridge is there. The bridge is there to bring the goods back and forth from North Point to Center Point, to North Point to Center Point. If it is a true closed loop, which I do not believe, it is a myth, but let's pretend for a second it's a true closed loop. How would those other trucks that they're reducing, right? Have we seen the big signs, reducing traffic? How would the trucks get into a closed loop?
God drops them down from heaven.
I guess so. I guess so. I will be honest with you, the trucks are coming anyway. The trucks are coming anyway. On the books right now in the county, there's probably 50 million square feet of warehousing already approved, ready to be built, okay? Yes, the market dictates it. Yes, more rail cars are coming in at these locations and in Wilmington and in Center Point, Joliet to these rail yards to be shipped back and forth. That's happening. But the municipalities, including the city of Joliet, have already approved tens of millions of square feet of warehousing yet to be built. Ridgeport Logistics sits on I-55 just south of here, 30 million square feet approved. Centerpoint has 10 to 12 million square feet, 12 million square feet left to build. There is this is off of my map here, but the city of Joliet has a 1 million square foot building near the racetrack. I'm sure many of you are familiar with it. That is actually an entire planned community. So there are it's already zoned industrial, and they already have a plat on the books of additional warehouses there. Laraway Crossings, which sits on Laraway Road, that's where the IKEA building sits. They have 10 million-ish square feet on the books, approved, ready to go. 50 million right there. Right here on 53 and 55. Not a single one of those 50 million square feet of warehouses can use this bridge. Not one of them. Not one of them. So what does this do? Does this reduce truck traffic? No. It adds truck traffic to a location that could in no way have that truck traffic without that bridge. Okay? Back to the closed loop. We talked about the trucks need to leave the park to get to their final destination, right? And North Point contends that would be I-80 and I-55. That's their ultimate goal. I'm going to have you reach really deep into your imagination here and just pretend that I-80 is backed up one day. I know, it's difficult, but I'm going to have you work with me here. I-80 is backed up, right? Where do the trucks go? Center Street, Briggs Street, Richard Street, Larkin Avenue, right? They're saying, oh, only 5,000 trucks a day that we're going to pump onto I-80. We know what I-80 looks like right now. Think those trucks are going to stay on I-80? Absolutely not. They're going to hit every one of your streets. We're going to talk a little bit about unresolved issues. Katie touched on the FAA property, and I think it's important to note that that is something specific in the annexation agreement. They contend that they do not currently have contiguity. They cannot go corner to corner to annex these properties. They need that additional property. At the Plan Commission meeting, this was asked of Chris Regis, the attorney, and they said, hey, you know, this kind of looks like an issue. Could this be an issue? And his response was, yes, it could be problematic. And then they voted unanimously approximately 2 minutes later. So it's important to note that that's going on. We've talked about the bridge. Let's talk about the economic impact, right? I think we've all seen the bajillions of dollars that this great project's going to bring us. I said at the community meeting there, North Point made their presentation, and they had some numbers on some slides, okay? And one of the very first questions I asked of Tom George was, how much is this costing you? I'm an assessor now. I'm not here speaking in an official capacity on assessments, but I was in small business lending in a previous life. And so my first question to anybody asking for money was, well, how much money are you going to make? and how much money does it cost you, and what's your 10-year plan look like, and all of that, right? You have a business plan when you go in. So I said, how much does this cost? And he said, the project has just changed so much, I'm not sure. And I said, well, you know, it was $1.3 billion when you were in Elwood. And he goes, yeah, we'll run with that number. That sounds right. And I said, okay, but now you've added all this acreage north of Manhattan Road to your project. So I'm gonna guess that it costs something a little bit different than that. And Tom George's response was, as much as it takes. We are paying for all of it, and it costs as much as it takes. And if I can put my assessor hat on for a second, properties are valued based on their income. Industrial properties, commercial properties, gas stations, Walgreens, whomever, right? We tend to take a look if the businesses let us at how much money they make a year, and then we can value their property relatively based on that. Very, very basic way of thinking about it. If you want to learn all about income valuation, the State of Illinois Department of Revenue gives great classes. So their numbers in the community meeting said that the city of Joliet would receive over $3 million. And I jumped out of my chair and I said, no, that's not true. That's not true. And so there was a lot of back and forth on it. It ultimately came down to they took one warehouse and then they multiplied its value by 10% and then multiplied it to the entire 16.5 million square feet for an ultimate projection revenue. And I said, well, listen, that would be very irresponsible of me to accept that number, and I cannot do it. And I will give Northpoint and Tom George credit that they came back to the city council meeting 2 weeks ago and they used a more appropriate number, okay? That's as much credit as I'm gonna give them. My issue with the number that they're projecting now, which I believe in the ad they ran on Sunday said $18.7 million in tax revenue, is a few things. One, that's total tax revenue. The city of Joliet doesn't see $18.7 million. That's every single taxing body all put together. Number two, that is at the very end, the very last day, fully built out. There's no vacancies that they can claim. They're receiving maximum rent rate and their income is just so great that we're gonna give it to them. That's how you get $18.7 million, okay? The economy in industrial here in the township is really, really good right now. We see a vacancy rate still of 10%. And that doesn't just apply to empty buildings, okay? Anybody can come to me and say, hey, the market rate's 10% for vacancy, so I want to claim that loss, right? Not anybody, they're attorneys who get paid a lot of money to do that. And we can say, okay, well, let's talk to the county, right? Get the assessment figured out. What happens when you build 30 million more feet of warehouse and 50 million more that's already on the books? You're gonna have a lot more vacancy, right? So you're gonna drive it down, okay? I would be very cautious of using projected tax revenue that a developer gives you. The Village of Elwood is over $30 million in debt because they took on improvements for projected tax revenue that never came to fruition. Okay, I don't want to see the city of Joliet do that. In addition to that, in the pre-annexation agreement, they talk about building north of Manhattan Road. I don't know how many of you are familiar with the area, but the area I'm talking about is pretty much between Route 66 Raceway and then Manhattan Road, which has a light at it. It's, you know, maybe 3 miles north and south, right? They have a stretch in there. If you saw in our projected buildings, they have 2-3 million square feet planned for that area. In the pre-annexation agreement, they already say, you know what, we're actually not going to build there. That's not, we don't really have plans for it. It's really kind of, it's far away from that intermodal section. We're not going to do that. We might do houses, we might do commercial. We don't really know yet. We want you to vote yes first. Okay? Well, if they're not building there, that's not creating tax revenue. They're not. And the city of Joliet, in the pre-annexation agreement, has roads dedicated. And that costs tax dollars, right? And to maintain truck routes is an enormous cost. An enormous cost. And it's really hard to keep up with that right now, right? I think we see that across the county. Really hard to keep up with road construction now. In the Plan Commission meeting that was asked, and Tom George said yes, yeah, the thoroughfares, City of Joliet's gonna go ahead and take over. What is the cost associated with that? We don't know. I don't know how much it costs per mile to maintain a truck route.
$3 million.
Okay, $3 million.
About $3 million per mile, give or take. And that includes curbs and stuff.
There's not a report there, right? The City of Joliet hasn't said, how much is this going to cost us? But North Point Development said, well, we're going to give you $2.5 million at imaginary full build out, even though we're not building North Manhattan Road. And now we've agreed that maybe 20% of it's not going to be warehouses anyway. So maybe you're looking at 60% of the revenue, which is $1.6 million, something like that. What's a new firehouse cost? What's the police cost? This is an immense. City of Joliet owns this property. This is City of Joliet currently, this right here, okay? So now your police are going to be in charge of this entire area. And your fire department's going to be in charge of this entire area. The Village of Elwood's police annual report said that 50% of their car accidents occurred within the intermodal. Where are your police going to be? Down here. How much money does that cost you? I don't know. North Point didn't know. Whatever it takes. Whatever it takes. But they're not the only ones paying for it, right? That's not how taxes work. We all take that cost and we all pay a little bite of it. And I think it's really important for the City of Joliet to go ahead and take a look and see how much this costs versus how much they're really looking at projecting bringing in. I think that's all I have. That's all I have. All I have. Ready? This is Stephanie Irvine.
Man, I am continually amazed by the brains of these ladies.
Yes.
That is, it's really important to understand the business impacts. I mean, we're looking at adding business to the area, so it's really important to understand that. And I think that Delilah did a great job of making that in a way that's tangible for those of us who are not very financially savvy when it comes to all those numbers and things. So thank you for that. As we are moving forward with this, a big question that we get asked regularly is, North Point owns all the property, so they should be able to get what they want, right? Well, the reality is, I'm not going to lie to you, they do own some of the property. They do not own all of the property, and that makes a difference. Many of the parcels that they own, including the 103 acres that was rezoned in the City of Joliet in October, they have not closed on. And when you have land in options with the promise of getting a development built, you're paying money and probably interest, and they want to get it done really, really fast, right? We're seeing this push through, at an almost unprecedented rate of speed. And so it matters when, people are like, well, they own all the property, it must just be a go. But really, I mean, if they haven't closed on all the land, then they don't own all the land. And let's just say, for devil's advocate, what if they did own outright every single parcel in the footprint? Well, I guess that means they get to do whatever they want, right? What do we have government for? We have government to make responsible land use planning decisions for us, to make decisions that will benefit our community. And real estate investment is a high risk game. When you're dumping millions of dollars into property with the hope that you're going to get what you want, it's not a guarantee. And there's a chance that you can lose. And North Point knows that, and that's why they're trying to speed this process up. And the other thing that's important to consider with that is, our government works pretty hard out here to deal with this incoming onslaught of trucks and traffic and warehousing. And it might not seem like it, especially on a day when we've got a whole lot of traffic or there's an accident or something held up. But they put money into land use studies to try and plan and fix things. And they did studies when they brought CenterPoint in. And what happened is, well, there ended up being a whole lot more than they thought was going to happen initially. So now they're working to try and figure out solutions to the problems that we face today. As years go by and different people are in office, people are trying to better the community and do better for it. And so we have ongoing right now 2 studies that are looking at land use planning and truck routing, specifically in this geographic area, to try and find solutions. And so with that, when we have a developer that says, we want to do this, we bought some of the land, we really have to count on our local elected officials to make the right decisions for our community. Just because they bought the land some of the land, does not mean that they automatically get to do what they want. How many of you have ever had to pay a permit to build something on your property, or had to go through a zoning process if you wanted to change something if you're out in the county? When you go through that process, there's rules and regulations in place to make sure that what's going in there and what you want to do with your property enhances the community in general. So it's important that you make sure to ask your local elected officials to represent you and what you think would be beneficial for the community. And understand too that just because they own some of the property does not mean that they automatically get to do what they want. And in fact, a large part of this property was owned by a different developer that went belly up in the recession. Real estate is a high-risk investment, and we shouldn't just roll over and let somebody do what they want to do. This is our community, you all live here, and you should have a voice in that, and that should be shown through the representation that you have. So a couple final words. I know we have thrown a ton of information at you all, but really, like I said, we've got 2 big studies going on. One is Moving Will County, that's going on through Will County, that's looking at that truck routing. And realistically, Larry Walsh Sr. came out, our county executive, said it would be a waste of tax dollars to a project of this size and scope right when we're trying to figure out solutions and plan for what we currently have. And that sentiment was echoed by County Board Member Joe Van Dyne, and that is also echoed by our Will County Chief of Staff, Nick Palmer, when he was interviewing. And you could correct me if I'm wrong on that, Nick, I know you're here. I don't want to put words in your mouth, but that was the gist of it. We're doing this planning for a reason, and we need to make sure that we continue to hold our officials to not wasting our tax dollars and letting sure that these plans can come to fruition. With a project of this size and scope, it should trigger engagement from every municipality in the area, and they really should work together. And it's important for people to understand that this project, where it sits in its location, could only be approved by the Village of Elwood, the City of Joliet, or the Village of Manhattan. And even the Village of Manhattan is so far away from the intermodal that wouldn't necessarily even be realistic. For any other municipality it's not feasible for another municipality to come and jump in and say, hey, this property way over here, we want to build it. That's not how that works. So the fear mongering that has gone on in pitting communities against each other is really quite irresponsible. The reality is only one of these 3 could do it. And the Village of Elwood has already said no. The county, I suppose they could have done it through the county, but that application languished, nothing happened with it. But they urged them, no, not so much. And realistically, right now, this is in the City of Joliet's hands. Manhattan, even if they were drooling for this project and wanted it, they could not take it. They do not have contiguity to annex the property. So Manhattan is really kind of a lame duck in this situation because they cannot annex the property to be able to build the project. So that leaves us with the city of Joliet. This is in the hands of city of Joliet officials to make the right choice for the area and for the community. Another point that I know this is kind of a long wrap up and I'm trying to wrap things up a little bit faster, but a couple things that I wanted to bring up is that what we are seeing before us, and Katie touched on it and Delilah touched on it, is before the city council is a pre-annexation agreement. And this agreement, really for all intents and purposes, is an annexation agreement that is being pushed through at a rapid pace. And we really should be asking elected officials to take a pause and say, you know, this is something that needs considerable thought, and we need to really understand what's going on here. I urge all of you, if you have not done so, to read the pre-annexation agreement. This is posted on the City of Joliet's website. It was for the Plan Commission for their review. It's a public document, and you can see and verify the things that we are telling you with regard to the closed loop not being something that is closed all the time, because at peak traffic periods, it can be open. So there's a ton of information, and it's not too hard to grasp, to figure out. I mean, it's a lengthy document, but I encourage you to read that. A couple other quick things that I wanted to mention is that this project, if they don't get their bridge, they don't have a plan B for this. Did you cover this?
Say it again.
Okay, I'm saying it again. They don't have a plan B. Patrick Robinson said this under oath at the hearings in Elwood. Tom George said this at the community town halls. If they have another plan, why aren't they telling us about it? It's because they don't. They don't have another plan B. So without this project, if the city of Joliet were to approve this pre-annexation agreement, they are essentially putting handcuffs on behind their back and giving themselves over to North Point to be able to make all these decisions for them. And so it's important to consider that this bridge is really a huge component of this project, and we shouldn't be moving that fast with it. And a couple other things that we didn't touch on, and I promise I'm finishing with this thought, is we talked a lot about technical aspects, right? We all see the traffic, we all see the trucks, but there are a number of other impacts. When we look at, many of you are here have seen the number of veterans that we have here supporting us. And that's because of the immediate impacts to Abraham Lincoln National Cemetery. This project would be less than a half mile from the cemetery. And when we know that currently with the road conditions that we have, our veterans are already being cut off in funeral processions, and we have already seen damage to the cemetery. This would exacerbate that problem. And this is too high of a risk for our veterans who have given it all and their families to have a peaceful resting place. We owe it to them to make sure that the development that goes in around the cemetery is something that will maintain that peace and tranquility. Additionally, we also have Medewan National Cemetery, which is just adjacent to it. What did I say?
Tall grass prairie.
Yeah. It's not a cemetery. Oh my gosh. I'm so sorry. That's embarrassing. Well, with that, I probably should shut up, right? But I do want to say that the tall grass prairie is a beautiful, beautiful place. If you haven't had the chance to see it, the wildlife, the ecological impacts that they could see are significant. And that's why we've garnered support by organizations such as Open Lands and the Sierra Club as well, because these things do matter. And then also, I'd like to give a shout out to Roberto with Warehouse Workers for Justice, which we'll probably talk at the end. Yeah, so I'm going to be done now. Thanks so much.
I just want to say, these women have been doing so much research for 3 years? And they have used the Freedom of Information Act and the websites and personal interviews and lots of phone calls, and they have really put in the work here. So it's been one of the hardest things for us is trying to figure out how to boil this down. So thanks for being patient as I say we've got lots of orbits, lots of different things. So I'm going to answer some of the questions here quickly. And we have invited, there are so many different organizations that are supporting this, and many of them are represented here tonight. Some of them had representatives at Knights of Columbus and weren't able to make it tonight, and vice versa. So anybody who wants to speak on behalf of those groups has been invited to do so, and many of the veterans have said that they would rather you approach them individually. So I don't know, Kevin from Stone City, did you want to come up and speak, or you want to just sit down? You're gonna wait, yeah, okay. So he's already made some presentations. So we're, again, as a movement, we've done this in a lot of different ways in a lot of different places. So the group that's here tonight is very different from the group that was in at Knights of Columbus, and certainly very different from what happened in Manhattan a few weeks before. So, so the pink questions and the chicken, I hope you guys got a laugh out of my chicken. I brought some country up to Joliet, okay? So this one says, how are all these big trucks going to make their turns without killing someone? They can't do it now. And I find that this is particularly, there are people in the room tonight who have lost family members. So this isn't a joke. This is a real valid question. And I think we can all just answer that in our hearts. So the question is, after zoning is agreed to, what's going to happen? Is this going to be a done deal? And I think we addressed that. The issues concerning a pre-annexation agreement are, we're not really certain what exactly Joliet is going to be committed to, and we're certainly not certain what's going to happen if the bridge doesn't go through, but that it will revert to Joliet to take responsibility. So lots of open questions there. Will the taxpayers be responsible for the upkeep of the roads from the truck traffic? And I think that that's been the key question that we've gone over and over is, you know, every single thing that I've read and heard from NorthPoint, they've said they are willing to pay for the roads and all the infrastructure within their facility. But again, once you step 1 inch outside of their facility, then it's on Joliet, and that's the problem. So I think the answer is yes, yeah. And it's not just on Joliet. For all of those people who are outside of Joliet, who are living in township or within village limits of Manhattan or Elwood, you're going to get hosed too.
Even the county.
And even the county.
Roads, so it's going to be a...
Yeah, and the Fraternal Order of Police, the Will County Sheriff's Deputies Fraternal Order of Police Laborers Union, and I hope I said that right, they have come out emphatically against this, and one of the reasons is the traffic, but there are so many reasons, and they listed on and on and on, and I've got some quotes over here, we've had some quotes in the paper, but their issues are so wide-ranging, not the least of which is the truck traffic. So when you have an entire county-wide police union that is so full-throatedly opposed to this, I think that, if nothing else, is worth taking pause. This question has to do with the studies. I think she mentioned what's going to happen with these studies. We've got CMAP, we've got moving Will County. She mentioned Joe Van Dyne. There is one specific to Joliet Intermodal, and it has to do between this specific targeted area. It started at being $250,000 last fall when they initiated it. On Friday, they came back and asked for another $80,000. So I think we're at $330,000 if I do my math correct. $330,000. It's due out in June by July 1st. Why are we rushing this without understanding what the study is? And the study starts with 3 things. It says, you know, let's look at the scenario that we're in right now. Let's look at scenario with full build out. of the warehouses that we have now. And then let's take a look at injecting that in an extreme circumstance, such as North Point. So if we are trying to understand what the transportation impact is going to be, and we have paid for this study. It's county, it's city, it's, and a couple of the private railroads have all contributed to this study. Why are we not interested in those results before we do this? That's a critical question. So with that, I'm going to introduce John Sheridan of Cunningham Neighborhood Association, followed by Roberto from Warehouse Workers for Justice, and I think that's all who said they wanted to speak from the community groups. John.
Thank you, Aaron. First of all, give yourselves a round of applause coming out for such a crappy night tonight. Because it was, you know, hey, you care. You're here because you care. And you care what happens to your neighborhood. There's one question, the $64,000 question is, why rush? I asked the city council members to ask that question. Why is there a big rush? I'll also ask them to research like I did with a FOIA request that says, where's the city ordinance? It talks about a pre-annexation agreement. It's not in the state municipal code. It's not our city ordinance. They're setting a precedent for somebody to walk in with a half backside agreement. Let's see if the kids are here. With a backside agreement that isn't complete and expect the city council to rush it through. And I think that's just totally wrong. When you ask yourself, well, it doesn't affect me because I don't live on the south side. That's those folks' problems. They're east side. Folks, you drive down Route 7, you drive down Briggs Street, you drive down I-80, you go on Jefferson Street, you go Route 7, you go Larkin Avenue, you do Jackson Street, you go out by Silver Cross Hospital. Truck traffic is everywhere. So it does affect you in your daily applications, let alone I-80. And the secret discussions kind of tick you off. That conversation was stated by certain individuals at the city council level, maybe a little bit higher than a council person, that there is no discussion with North Point back last year. Well, the FOIA request has shown the discussion and a letter of endorsement was sent in June of 2019, but yet the city council members, a certain handful, were accused of meeting with North Point secretly. Well, we found out the truth. It wasn't them. Okay, it's somebody a little bit higher. The Plan Commission, young man back there, Dominic Orlando, was removed from the Plan Commission when his term expired because he was the only one representing you on the Plan Commission, asking several questions, got the votes delayed, and a certain party who appoints people to that commission and to zoning boards and so on, removed him when his term came up, only because he couldn't be controlled. And if you look at the demographics of Joliet, we're a multicultural area, and there ain't no color on the Plan Commission. Nobody representing the east side, nobody representing the south side. And the same way for the zoning board, maybe one person from the east side. And we talk about everybody else's comprehensive plans. What about Joliet spending $246,000 for a comprehensive plan, lied to the mayor of Elwood and said, we cannot extend the boundary agreement because we have this comprehensive plan that we want to do. And it would be unfair to our residents if we extended the boundary agreement. They lied to them because they know darn well what was happening with North Point back in June. And this conversation took place, I think, at the end of September or October when the mayor of Elwood came and talked to them. Again, somebody being lied to. The hotel, a Marriott hotel downtown, talked about taking 18 months to plan that hotel. Looks like a nice project, by the way. But 18 months for that little piece of land to figure out all the details, then come to the city council and get it presented. Again, $64,000 question, why rush? No Rib State South Side, and also, let's see, plan agreement, full of holes. They pointed out tonight that agreement is not complete, and I don't know how the city council members can vote on something that is incomplete. If any of you in this room came before the Planning Commission with a project of your own, maybe build a little strip mall or whatever in Joliet, you'd have to have it all laid out. The T's crossed, the I's dotted. So why is this group of individuals allowed to get exceptions to the rules of everybody else in Joliet? It's just not fair.
There's no impact study and no traffic
That's correct. No impact study or no traffic study has been completed. And I think that's part of the county plan, Nick, correct? Part of the county plan is to do the traffic study, right? Yeah. Okay, but they're interested in the whole south side area, and it's got to be done. But you need to let your council members know, there's two of them here tonight, be respectful, walk up, give them your point of view, and let them know how you feel. They represent you, they were elected by you, and in my old-fashioned opinion, if I elect you to represent me, I expect you to take my voice to that vote and listen to the taxpayers of Joliet when it comes time on March 17th. So if you can be there, please be down there. Thank you.
Do I ever need to introduce you? Okay.
My name's Roberto with the Warehouse Workers for Justice. How are we feeling tonight? Are we mad? Are we upset? Do we want to do something about this?
Yes.
That's good. Wow. I got some things I really need you to do. And you know, I got some good news. You know, I think the ground is shifting. I think the tide is turning. I think we're being listened to. There's a candidate in the room, he said, you know what, we need to slow it down. Do you agree with that? We need to slow this down? Do we need to say no to North Point? Well, we can do this, but we need all of you. I got the sheet of paper, and it's got the entire city council's phone number and email. Seriously, who's gonna call their city council member tomorrow? Raise your hand. I should see this whole room. Who's gonna email? Who's gonna get someone in your family to do the same thing? Who's gonna get a neighbor to make that contact? You know, North Point's throwing around a lot of money to buy some influence in this town. They're twisting some arms. They're doing this. You know why they're doing this so quickly? It's because of you. Because they don't want us to get organized. They don't want us to give any time. They don't want us to get it together. Well, you know what I'm seeing right now? I'm seeing we're getting it together.
Yes, we are.
I'm seeing we can make a difference.
Yes.
I'm seeing we can tackle the underlying problems. I don't even know who this gentleman was in the Herald News. He said, I work in warehouses. We work with the Warehouse Workers for Justice. He said, I don't see why we should build any more warehouses in Joliet when we're only getting paid $13 to $16 an hour. That's not an opportunity. A staffing agency is not an opportunity. An anti-union company like Walmart or Amazon aren't opportunities. Not the opportunities that we need. So are we going to stand up for our veterans?
Yes.
Who feel like they're being disrespected? Are we going to stand up for those warehouse workers?
Yes.
Are we going to stand up for Elwood that's drowning in $30 million in debt when this was supposed to pay for better schools and better roads and better infrastructure? I-80 bridge is about to fall in the damn, excuse my language, children, in the damn river, and we're just supposed to accept this as usual? This closed loop, like whatever talking point they got from the developer, this is going to make less traffic? Are you serious? You're a mayor and you're actually telling us this? Something that makes no sense at all? You know, you have that fancy law degree, and what does it work? This is what you're telling us, something that defies common sense? Well, we can win, but I need you to make this contact. I need you to do it tonight. I need you to do it tomorrow. I need you to post it all over Facebook and get everyone you know to contact the city council and tell them to say no to North Point. We need a better deal. Thank you.
I don't know why I try to take the microphone after him. I feel like I need my cheerleader outfit or something. So I just wanted to say, the information that we have, if there's any question, if anybody has any particular question, We have all of the documents to support every statement that we've made. We have every letter, every ordinance, every FOIA request, every MLS report from the things that I said. We are able to justify everything. Most of it's on our website. I am going to suggest, if you guys haven't taken a look, please go to the No2Northpoint.com. It's a really outstanding website. Thanks, John. But I also, yes. You can email, one of the things that you can do there is you can email your council members as well, and it asks you to specify what city you're from, and I think it's really critical. We are not a bunch of NIMBYs, conspiracy theorists, sky is falling, chicken little folks. We actually have data to support the carnage that is happening in our community, and that is happening in the communities where this development is in other places. So we have the data, we have the records. So with that, I think I'm just going to say goodnight, right? Come on the 17th to the City Council meeting is at 6:30 at the Village Hall. Yeah, it's up there. And this movement has been a movement from a lot of different angles, a lot of different personalities. You've seen several of us here, and there are a lot more back home. So thanks for your patience with each of us. Good night.